Kyle?
You already used my name.
I did?
Yeah.
Sorry. Do I have permission?
Yeah.
Thank you. Is it rolling? Mm-hmm. Okay, Kyle asked what was y of t, so I want to make sure that's cleared up before we go on. So this was the first order differential equation that we got for that circuit with a capacitor. And then I said, okay, well it looks kind of like the differential equation that we got for the circuit with the inductor. And so what I did is I said, well, let's not call it V anymore, let's call it X. And then, this is just some constant, let's call it tau. And we did the same thing with the other circuit. And it's like, this is some function of time. Let's just call it y of t, right? Now, of course, y of t is related to whatever that voltage source is. But it's not exactly just the voltage source, it's actually the voltage source divided by tau. So that's exactly what y of t is. So y of t is, in the case of the circuit with the inductor, it's whatever the voltage source is divided by tau, because that's what the y of t, that's what it represented. In the case with the inductor, y of t was equal to whatever that current source was as a function of time divided by tau. Now, but remember, tau in that case was L over R. In the case with the capacitor, tau was R times C. So great. I'm glad you asked that, because otherwise, I give you this formula that has y of t in it. How are you going to know what to do? Well, what you do is make sure that your first order circuit, first of all, it has to look like this. It's got to be the one with the capacitor, and it's got to be the Norton equivalent. Now, I know the book actually also gave, I keep calling this Norton. This is actually Thevenin, sorry. I know the book gave you a capacitor with both the Thevenin and the Norton. I got rid of the Norton one just because I don't feel we need it. For a capacitor, it just makes more sense to do it, with the Thevenin, where we have the voltage source in series with the resistor. For the inductor, it actually makes more sense to me to use the Norton equivalent, where we've got the current source in parallel with the resistor, and then we've got the inductor. And what we're looking at in this circuit, in general, with circuits with inductors, what we're really interested in is the current through the inductor. Because if we have the current through the inductor, shoot, I erased it, then we've got the voltage, right? If we've got the current, boom, we've got the voltage. For the capacitor, we want the voltage, because if we've got the voltage, boom, we've got the current. So, I know that in the various problems they're asking you for one or the other, but what I'm saying is, in these general cases, if we can get this voltage, it's easy to get the current. So that's what I'm concentrating on, and so that's why I decided to just take this circuit and not bother with the Norton one. For the inductor, I took the Norton circuit and I didn't bother with the Thevenin one because I just don't need it. All I'm interested in is getting the current through the inductor. Once I have that, it's easy for me to get the voltage. So that's what I'm claiming is really, if you have a capacitor, it's a first order circuit, you have a capacitor, make it look like that. Once you make it look like that, then you can actually skip everything that I have here and go directly to the solution. And that solution was this formula here. And of course, the only thing you have to make sure is that you know how to use the formula. Okay, there's the formula. So of course you're going to have to know what y of t is. So I'm glad you asked that. So what's y of t? Y of t, if you're using this circuit, is Vs over tau. If you're using that circuit, y of t is I over tau. But in that case, tau is L over R. All right? And so the rest of this is pretty clear. I mean, E, that's just the function. Tau, we know what tau is. K, what's K? Oh, this is good. All right, K comes out, I should have talked a little bit more about that. All differential equations The solution happens in two parts, okay? So this is one part, this is the second part. This one is called the transient part. This one is called the forced part, forced solution, the particular solution. Sometimes this is called the homogeneous solution. I forgot all the names. I have them listed in the notes. So anyway, the thing about the theory of differential equations that I want to make sure you know is that for the transient part of the solution, you are always going to have the same number of arbitrary constants as the order of the circuit. So K is actually called an arbitrary constant, okay? So you kind of have to know this theory, even though you haven't had differential equations, but I'm telling you now. In the transient part of the solution for a differential equation, the solution has to have the same number of arbitrary constants as the order of the differential equation. So this is the solution of a first order differential equation, so it has one arbitrary constant. How are you going to evaluate the arbitrary constants? By the boundary conditions. Okay, so this is an important idea. The arbitrary constants are calculated by using boundary conditions. All right, what do I mean by boundary conditions? I mean like those initial conditions. Like, you know, a lot of times in these circuits you're told, well, at t equals 0, the voltage is 10 volts. Or you might be told at t equals 0, the voltage is 0 volts. I don't care. Whatever information you're given, that's how you can solve for k, because all you have to do is solve, you know, substitute in t equals 0. You know, at t equals 0, what's the value of x? And then you can solve for k that way. So that's how you get the value of, in this case, k, but in general, any arbitrary constant. So we only have one arbitrary constant. We're only going to need one boundary condition. And by the way, I'm calling it a boundary condition because it doesn't have to be an initial condition. You could be given information like at t equals 10 seconds, you know what the voltage is. And so you could use that. And so I'm making it a little bit more general by calling it a boundary condition. But for most of the problems, you're probably given the initial conditions. So you use that. Okay, let's do a problem. So maybe cut it so that I can